The man possessed an immortal body. Yet at this moment he was suffering a fate worse than death. What appeared to be an ordinary strike had completely destroyed his prized regenerative ability, simply because he faced the strongest boss of the abyss. Looking at his companions collapsed in pools of blood, the man finally understood. This was an abyssal boss that humanity could never possibly defeat, just as despair consumed him completely. A hoarse, rasping roar caught his attention. Struggling to turn his head, he saw the girl continuously channeling magic power, casting healing spells. But due to the man's severe injuries, it was utterly futile. To prevent the man from dying, Lee Yujong seemed to make a certain resolve. The next second, tremendous sacred magic power surged skyward, accompanied by a massive thunderous explosion that reverberated throughout the entire space. When he opened his eyes again, the once blurred carousel of memories gradually became clear. The familiar scene before him made him involuntarily reach out with his small hand. But when warm fingers intertwined with his mother's gentle voice, the man finally realized he had not died. Instead, he had returned to when he was 1 year old. At that moment, the man suddenly remembered. Before his death, Lee Yujong had cast a skill with only a 1 in 10,000 chance of success. Miracle. However, in his previous life, when he was 6 years old, his family had perished in a monster attack. It was precisely because of this that he became an immortal being, driven by hatred for monsters. Since heaven had given him another chance, this time he would risk his life to protect his family. After gaining the ability to move freely, the first thing Yunha did was enhance his magic power limit. In his previous life, it was because of insufficient magic power and lack of endurance that he struggled when facing hordes of monsters. Early training allowed Yunha to accidentally discover the truth about surviving his previous life. His sister possessed an enormous amount of magic power within her body. In the previous life, during the magic invasion, she had protected him by self-destructing her magic power. 2.5 years passed in the blink of an eye, and Yunha, who never left home, went out for a walk with his sister, because today would be the first time his sister encountered a monster attack. Sure enough, when passing through a small alley, a spine-chilling roar drew everyone's attention. When they looked ahead, a wild dog driven mad by magic corruption suddenly appeared. The moment she saw the wild dog, she stepped in front of him, but her trembling body still betrayed her inner fear. "Don't be afraid, Yunha, sister will protect you." However, it was precisely these words that brought long-buried memories from his previous life flooding back. He grabbed his sister's protective hand. "This time, I will be the one to protect sister." With that, he stepped forward in front of his sister. His eyes gazed coldly at the beast before him, and then tremendous magic power burst forth from his body. Seemingly sensing the terrifying aura of the man before it, the previously arrogant wild dog began trembling uncontrollably. Then he coldly shouted, "Get lost!" The next second, feeling the threat of death, the wild dog was scared into fleeing. As the magic power gradually dissipated, just as he was wondering how to explain to his sister, unexpectedly, his sister excitedly hugged him, asking if what just happened was magic power. She expressed her desire to learn magic as well. Seeing his sister pestering him relentlessly, Yunha breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that since she was his sister, such behavior was not surprising. Since he could not refuse her persistent requests, Yunha reluctantly agreed to teach his sister magic. Little did he know that Yunha had already planned this, hoping to help his sister control the tremendous magic power within her body as early as possible. So in the following days, Yunha taught his sister how to use and control magic power. However, what he did not expect was that although his sister possessed enviable magic power, her ability to control magic power was truly abysmal. Hearing this, his sister rolled up her sleeves defiantly, determined to completely conquer this spinning top today. As azure magic power gathered in her palm, tremendous magic power swirled around, driving the spinning top to rotate. As expected, the spinning top immediately went out of control, nearly destroying the family's only entertainment device. He had thought such peaceful days could continue forever, but they were interrupted by an unexpected event. It turned out that Yunha had reached the age to attend kindergarten, but with his actual age totaling 40 years, how could he mingle and play with a bunch of little kids? However, he had previously promised his mother that he would enter kindergarten at age 6. Just then, cheerful announcements from the television interrupted this conversation. The images displayed showed the building that changed human history, the Central Temple Main Hall. Since then, humans learned to use magic power and devoted themselves entirely to researching how to utilize it. But what humans did not know was that when the balance of magic power in the world was disrupted, it would cause monsters to appear. Therefore, during humanity's peak magic era, a terrifying event occurred that made everyone's blood run cold. The apocalyptic destruction that caused the world to lose 60% of its population. Since then, monsters could appear anywhere in the human world at any time, causing governments and laws to lose their balancing power. Taking their place were the power holders and wealthy from the old world, as well as players with powerful magic abilities. Those ordinary people without magic power could only survive desperately in isolated areas. In such desperate times, hope appeared. And she was the fairy Lim Gaeul from the Central Temple Main Hall, the original fairy who guarded the world. Her unique skill, Silver, could eliminate the imbalanced characteristics of magic power, ensuring the safety of human society. As Lim Gaeul gathered tremendous magic power in both hands, the moment she touched the orb, azure magic power shot skyward, forming a brilliant cross-shaped star, with her as the center point, spreading outward in all directions, creating a brilliant barrier to protect human society. After another 2.5 days, 6-year-old Yunha began his wonderful kindergarten life. After the teacher's simple introduction, Yunha, who did not want to be disturbed, quickly went to the relatively quiet children's library. After randomly selecting a book, he found a table and sat down. But it was precisely this quiet and handsome appearance that attracted the attention of a gentle girl nearby. Just as she was about to greet him, a boy with a bandage burst in, mocking the girl coldly. He even snatched the butterfly bow from the girl's head. Then he deliberately ran far away and threw it to his companion, refusing to return it no matter how the girl pleaded. Just as the girl was about to cry, an angry shout interrupted this scene. So childish. Hearing this, the blonde boy immediately flew into a rage. What did you just say? However, Yunha slowly rose from his chair, then approached the blonde boy. I said you're childish. Do you think this is fun? The provoked blonde boy could no longer contain him and threw a punch at Yunha. But Yunha easily dodged it, then simply kicked out, making the blonde boy spin a full 360 degrees, while simultaneously retrieving the stolen butterfly bow. As the blonde boy crashed to the ground with a thud, Yunha returned the butterfly bow to the girl. Don't let anyone snatch it away next time. The unconvinced blonde boy still wanted to make threats, but Yunha just turned back with a glare, scaring everyone into fleeing. Then the girl gently tugged at Yunha's sleeve, happily thanking him. Thank you for helping me get back my hairband. Only then did Yunha notice that unlike Minji and the blonde boy's magic power levels, the girl before him was surrounded by terrifying magic power, far exceeding even his sister's magic quantity. Moreover, according to Yunha's careful observation, she also possessed excellent control abilities. All the magic power in her body was concentrated together without any leakage. Such talent would surely become a renowned powerhouse even if she did not join the 12 thrones. But in his previous life he had never heard the name Hyang, although Yunha did not know the reason. He still extended his right hand to build a good relationship with her. Little did he know that in the future, their fates would become completely intertwined. Time quickly passed day by day, and with the arrival of winter vacation, what should have been a joyful time. But Yunha's expression was now utterly desolate, because tomorrow would be the day that changed his family's fate. The man's first action after being reborn to the past was to prevent his family from visiting grandmother. Hearing this, his parents thought he had gone mad. They quickly comforted him, saying that grandmother was not some terrible monster. But only he knew that, except for him, they would die on the way to grandmother's house, becoming victims of the Kraken's first invasion of the safe zone. So he used the upcoming Children's Day as an excuse to suggest postponing the visit to grandmother. However, just as his parents had compromised, they received an urgent phone call. His mother immediately became panicked, learning through the phone that grandmother had suddenly collapsed and urgently needed family members to come care for her. Hearing this, Yunha's heart trembled violently. In his previous life, until he entered the player academy, grandmother had been fine. Could it be that his attempt to change the predetermined future had caused grandmother's injury? If he did not make a decision now, grandmother might suffer unexpected harm. But would this not mean that now was no different from before his rebirth? At this moment, Yunha fell into a cycle of self-doubt. However, having lived 2 lives, he quickly calmed down. No, there was still a huge difference from the previous life, and it was himself. Compared to his previous life, he now not only possessed rich combat experience, but also had magic power sufficient to battle monsters, built through persistent training from childhood. Since he could not change the fate of his family encountering the Kraken, then he would face the Kraken himself. However, even so, he was still no match for the level 3 monster sea creature. So his goal was only one: to delay as much time as possible. Just like in his previous life, wait for the 12 thrones to appear and defeat the Kraken. Therefore, before departure, Yunha took out the most lethal weapons he could currently possess: scissors and craft knives. Do not underestimate these small tools. As long as they were wrapped in magic power, they could cause considerable damage even to level 3 monsters. After preparing everything, Yunha shouldered his backpack, ready for a life-or-death battle with the Kraken. Sure enough, exactly like his previous life. At this moment, the car was stuck on the bridge leading to grandmother's house. The long journey had made everyone somewhat tired. However, Yunha's nerves were stretched to the extreme, because in his previous life, the Kraken had appeared suddenly while the car was crossing the bridge. But why had they reached the middle of the bridge and Kraken still had not appeared? Could it be that his actions had once again caused the future to change? If so, then please let them pass the bridge safely. But in the next second, a tremendous explosion echoed across the entire sea area, and the solid bridge was severed in half by an unknown force. Steel and concrete debris flying through the air swept over passing vehicles like raindrops, as if mocking Yunha's unrealistic wishes, making him fully understand that predetermined fate would never be changed. The level 3 catastrophic monster sea creature, wielding its massive tentacles, appeared before everyone. Wherever its tentacles passed, nothing survived, and various debris in the Kraken's hands. Those were like toys, merely entertainment tools to relieve its boredom. Terrified people cried out for help from players. However, Yunha knew very well that the strongest player stationed in this city was only sea level. no match for the Kraken, defeated in an instant by the city's strongest guard unit. The surviving players, with their survival instincts peaked, dared not advance, even running faster than civilians, because more monsters would soon emerge from the sea floor, and those who ran slowly were all impaled by flying spears. At this time, countless divers slowly climbed up along the walls. The moment they climbed up, they targeted the defenseless civilians, even though players immediately went to intercept them. They found they were still no match for the divers. In just moments, the player team of with 100 members was slaughtered to fewer than 10. Everyone was stunned by the horrific scene before them. Fortunately, Yunha's fierce shout, "Don't look back, everyone run now!" This snapped everyone back to their senses, and they ran toward the bridge edge. But it was this shout that alerted the Kraken. It immediately used its tentacles to grab a pile of cars, shooting them toward the crowd at extreme speed, even though they barely avoided the debris. One car happened to crash into an oil tanker, instantly causing a massive explosion. The huge fire barrier blocked their only escape route. What made everyone even more desperate was that reinforcements from the 12 thrones were still 30 minutes away. This meant there was no way out at this time. Although the divers were being eliminated one by arriving players, if no one could stop the Kraken, everyone would die here. Thinking of this, Yunha hesitated no longer. He pulled out his weapons, the craft knives and scissors. After all, he had decided from the beginning that even if he sacrificed his life, he would protect his family. He then resolutely gripped the craft knife and ran toward the Kraken. When he was about to reach the Kraken, Yunha gathered magic power in his legs and used the skill Sky Step. He moved at extreme speed across the tops of cars. But he had not run far when every muscle in Yunha's body cried out in pain. Indeed, using the skill with a child's body was too burdensome. But this was the only way he could quickly approach and bypass its tentacles, as Yunha used the momentum to fly into mid-air. When he appeared again, the previously invincible divers were helpless against his blade. In just an instant, he slaughtered all the blocking divers. Before he could celebrate, a sneaky one hiding under a car opened its bloody maw, preparing to deal Yunha a fatal blow. Fortunately, he was focused and jumped to avoid it, then injected magic power and fiercely stabbed into the diver's head. But unfortunately, there were too many monsters, and the craft knife was just an ordinary weapon. After slaying the last diver, it finally broke under the strain, shattering into pieces. But Yunha was not panicked at all. He immediately pulled out another weapon, the scissors, breaking them apart into two halves. Tremendous magic power attached to them formed blue laser short blades. At this moment, Yunha approached the Kraken. "I'll use this to turn you into sashimi." Feeling humiliated, the Kraken swung its massive tentacles, striking fiercely at Yunha. But against Yunha's agile movements, it was completely useless. Taking advantage of the Kraken's attack interval, Yunha saw his chance and climbed to the top using the tentacles. Then he leaped down, plunging the blade deep into the Kraken's body. Using his body's gravity, he carved two huge wounds on its body, then pulled out the scissors again, frantically repeating the stabbing and pulling motions. The intense pain caused the Kraken to swing its tentacles, striking fiercely at Yunha. Seeing this, Yunha quickly jumped to safety, reformulating his plan, because one of the scissors had bent beyond use. But for Yunha, this was actually a good thing. He immediately concentrated all his magic power on the remaining scissors, and violent magic power burst forth, even cutting through the air with lightning. But Kraken was prepared fully. It made several of attacks toward Yunha, but all ineffective. And more importantly, Yunha's magic power was nearly exhausted. Watching the Kraken gradually destroy the bridge's supporting pillars, about to reach his family hiding behind him. Suddenly, powerful magic power surged skyward. Yunha slashed toward the Kraken's swinging tentacles. But at the last moment, the magic power suddenly dissipated, and Yunha stumbled and collapsed to the ground. Exhausted magic power and an overdrawn body left Yunha completely unable to move. If he collapsed and lost consciousness here, everything he had done would be in vain, as Yunha's vision grew increasingly narrow. But there were still 15 minutes until the 12 thrones arrived. Just as the monster's tentacles were about to crush Yunha, a pair of small hands filled with sacred magic power suddenly appeared from behind him, holding him tightly and shouting, "Don't hurt my brother!" In that instant, a tremendous golden pillar of light shot skyward. Just touching it turned the Kraken's tentacles to ash. Yunha looked in disbelief at his sister who was protecting him, because at this moment a miracle had occurred. That was a skill capable of breaking the natural laws of the world and reconstructing it. You must know that in his previous life, only 4 people on the entire planet possessed the skill miracle. And Li Yujung, Yunha's most trusted companion, had used this very skill to send him back to when he was 1 year old. Under the sacred and holy light attribute magic power, Yunha discovered in amazement that it not only prevented Krakens from harming them, but also gradually restored his exhausted magic power and body. But all of this came at a price. Every player who activated the skill miracle and reconstructed the world paid an unimaginable price. So Yunha anxiously asked, "Sister, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" "Me? I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere." Just as she finished speaking, his sister slowly fell into Yunha's arms. The barrier also disappeared with her, turning into golden light particles that entered his sister's body. And this was precisely the price his sister had to pay. except for minimal magic power maintaining her heartbeat. All bodily functions were essentially equivalent to zero. Fortunately, the release time was short, so with proper rest she could recover. So Unha adjusted to a comfortable sleeping position, gently placing his sister on the ground. The next second, his eyes became increasingly cold. Tremendous magic power gushed from his body. His small figure formed a shining point of light before the massive kraken. At this moment, Yunha could feel that his physical condition was the best it had ever been. Facing the rapidly approaching tentacles, he not only did not dodge, but simply waved lightly and severed the tentacles that had troubled all players. "I will absolutely not let you touch even a hair on my sister." The battle erupted. At this moment, the kraken no longer hid its strength, desperately wanting to tear apart the humans behind the boy. If it let him release that skill again, it would surely die. But the tiny human before it seemed like a different person, repeatedly cutting off its prized tentacles, because at this moment, Unha had completely dispelled the fear in his heart. Even though he still could not defeat the kraken, the future had changed, and his family members had not died. He just needed to hold on until the 12 thrones arrived. And there were still 5 minutes until the 12 thrones' arrival. So Unha spared nothing, pushing his magic power to the extreme. Again and again, cutting off the tentacles trying to approach his sister. Just as Unha's magic power was about to be depleted, the 12 thrones arrived carrying a sword burning with flames. With just a casual strike, the burning flames caused the kraken's tentacles to lose their regenerative ability. Immediately, wails echoed across heaven and earth. With a splash, it dove back into the sea. As the bridge returned to calm once more, Unha not only did not thank him, but instead held his sister with a wary expression. Because Yunha knew. Flame Demon Kang Hyunchol was a complete battle maniac, and only powerful opponents could ignite his bloodthirsty fighting instincts. In his previous life, whenever Flame Demon Kang Hyunchol had a chance, he would seek out Unha for duels, but Unha had never won against him. Not only that, Kang Hyunchol would grow stronger with each battle. He was simply a monster born for combat. Besides this, Unha knew little else about him. He did not understand this person's true nature. If he learned that his sister possessed the skill Miracle, he feared what outrageous actions he might take. Looking at the wary boy before him, Kang Hyunchol tried to make himself appear as gentle as possible. "Don't worry, my purpose here is only that kraken. I have no intention of fighting you. At least not now." With that, Kang Hyunchol looked toward the sea again. At this time, the kraken was using seawater to extinguish the flames and slowly recovering from its injuries, seemingly knowing that losing the ground advantage was unfavorable. The moment it recovered, it began wantonly destroying the bridge's foundation. This put Kang Hyunchol in a difficult position, as he could not protect the children while fighting the kraken. Just as he was at a loss, 2 water-formed foundations protected the collapsing bridge. The timely reinforcement came from one of the 12 thrones, Holy Mother Park Hyerim. Although she was quite dissatisfied with Demon Flame calling her Holy Mother, she still raised her staff, casting multiple enhancement spells on Demon Flame. After instructing the Holy Mother to take care of the children, Demon Flame dove headfirst into battle with the kraken. A ball of flame actually burned fiercely in the seawater, watching tentacles swinging from all directions. The moment they struck, earth-shaking collision sounds erupted. But this not only caused no damage, it actually ignited Demon Flame's more bloodthirsty fighting instincts. He raised his long sword wrapped in scorching flames, and swung it forward fiercely. Boundless flames instantly engulfed the kraken's massive body. Agonizing wails echoed across the sea, as the flames attached to Demon Flame's body gradually dissipated. A smile appeared on Una's face. The kraken that had caused his entire family's death in his previous life was finally eliminated. At this moment, the Holy Mother hurried to Yunha's side, preparing to heal them, but discovered they were not injured. The Holy Mother was now completely certain that the miracle magic that had appeared must have emanated from this girl. Thinking of this, the Holy Mother excitedly wanted to touch his sister, but was stopped by Una's cold words, "Don't touch my sister." Hearing this, the Holy Mother's heart trembled. She could not believe that a child would have such terrifying killing intent. What exactly was his identity? The two were then taken to the hospital. Fortunately, after examination, it was just magic power depletion caused by insufficient magic power, and they would recover with magic power potions. At this moment, Onha's tense nerves finally relaxed. Everything was over. His family had all survived, and the future had truly been changed. But just then, a voice that made him tremble rang out. Looking back, his parents had anxiously rushed to the hospital room. Seeing the lively Yunha and his sister lying in bed, they could not utter a single word of the scolding they had prepared. At this moment, Yunha had only one thought: "I will be dead." After learning that both were unharmed, his father sternly lectured, "Why didn't you listen and ran off by yourself?" Hearing this, Yunha lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry." Yunha, who appeared to be apologizing, was actually thinking that as long as his family members were alive, it was the best outcome for him. As for his parents, a sincere apology would suffice. But when he looked up at his parents, his heart trembled. Anxiety, worry, and disappointment were fully displayed on his parents' faces. At this moment, Yunha realized that what his parents cared about was not the result, but the process of him taking it upon himself to deal with the kraken. Truly feeling his parents' emotions and his family members who were still alive, Yunha could no longer hold back, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, I will never act rashly again." Seeing Yunha's sincere apology, his mother gently extended her arms, pulling Yunha into a gentle embrace. Next time, don't be so reckless. Mom and Dad were so worried. The next morning, his parents, whose trust in Yunha was at zero, left only after countless warnings and instructions to handle discharge procedures. Yunha, who had been through intense battles, seemed particularly interested in sweets, but no matter how he searched, he could not find any remaining chocolate. At this time, a chocolate bread was handed to him. Yunha, who was about to thank him, suddenly discovered that this person was none other than flame demon Kang Hyunchol, startling him so much that his outstretched hand froze in midair. Seeing this, Kang Hyunchol asked puzzledly, "What's wrong? Do you like chocolate bread?" He then took the initiative to tear open the packaging and stuffed it into Yunha's mouth. His purpose for coming here was to recommend that the siblings enter the player academy. This actually made Yunha's body begin to tremble. Is this guy planning to play a nurturing game? Train me to become a player, then duel with me when I'm an adult? Fortunately, Kang Hyunchol was not aggressive. "It's okay, you're still young and can consider it slowly. Contact me when you've made up your mind." He then left the hospital room. The Holy Mother on the side asked in confusion, "That's it? That's the skill miracle that has never appeared in our country before. Are you an idiot?" Hearing this, Kang Hyunchol retorted, "I'm not an idiot. If this matter were reported, the moment it's reported, their peaceful lives would be shattered. That's not something you'd want to see. So stop thinking about any miracles." After his sister was discharged from the hospital, the family drove to grandmother's house. The long journey plus the life-or-death battle with the Kraken made Yunha sleep the entire way in the car, until he was awakened by sleep paralysis at night. He discovered that his sister's sleeping posture was astonishing, with her entire body pressed on top of him. "So why does my usually well-behaved and beautiful sister have such terrible sleeping habits?" Yunha quickly discovered. It was fun. That while Dad appeared to be sound asleep, he had actually been dead for quite a while. Mom had him in a chokehold, tightly restricting Dad's throat. So sister's terrible sleeping habits actually come from Mom. After tucking his sister in, Yunha, unable to sleep, came alone to the small courtyard, because he urgently needed to confirm his physical condition. After the battle with the Kraken, the magic power in his body had miraculously improved. Even Yunha, who had reached the pinnacle in his previous life, was unclear about the cause. Could it be his skill? Before his rebirth, Yunha's skill was called Berserk, a skill that gradually improved physical attributes and magical effects as magic power was consumed. True to its name, at the moment magic power was depleted, he would instantly lose rationality and become a bloodthirsty killer. But what puzzled Yunha was that he had not lost his rationality at that time. If he could use Berserk in this life without suffering the side effects of losing control, it should be the best outcome for Yunha. But did this not mean Yunha's understanding of Berserk's essence was wrong? Seeing Yunha lost in thought, grandmother asked with concern, "Why are you up so early?" Then she draped a blanket over Yunha, fearing her grandson would catch cold. This warm interaction with grandmother inevitably reminded Yunha of his previous life, when he was lost in thought. She would silently stay by his side. Whether he wanted to confide his troubles or chat casually, grandmother would always wait for him to speak first, always considering Yunha's feelings. So Yunha smiled and asked, "Why isn't grandmother sleeping either?" Grandmother then cheerfully replied, "That's because I saw my dear grandson outside alone, not sleeping either." At this moment, Yunha seemed to truly become a 6-year-old child again, returning to the days he had dreamed of in his previous life. Grandmother then asked if he wanted some hot milk. Just as Yunha was about to refuse, his mother appeared behind Yunha carrying steaming hot milk. "Then what should we do with this extra cup?" After Yunha accepted the hot milk, his mother brought up what everyone wanted to know. Why did grandmother suddenly get hurt? Fortunately, grandmother's fall down the stairs that day resulted in only minor scrapes. But grandmother's answer left his mother feeling incredulous. "Should I call it a daydream? I saw your father when I was going upstairs." Hearing this, his mother anxiously interrupted, wanting to take grandmother to the hospital immediately for a checkup. Grandmother waved her hand. "I'm not senile yet. Let me finish." At that time, he kept waving at me, as if telling me I couldn't go there. But thinking about it now, it seems he wasn't speaking to me, but to you all. What's even more amazing is that I dreamed of him again just now. He said there was a beautiful little deer outside that was lonely. With that, she lovingly stroked Yunha. Then I came out and saw Yunha. Hearing this, his mother also said in surprise, "I also dreamed of Dad just now, and he handed me a little deer. Then I woke up." Then she looked at Yunha. "Yunha, what kind of person do you want to become when you grow up?" Hearing this, Yunha fell into deep thought. A strange black aura quietly emerged. Countless lonely spirits and vengeful ghosts let out heart-wrenching screams. Just as the ghosts were about to touch Yunha, Yunha suddenly awakened. Looking back, it was his mother's hand. It seemed that after saving his parents, Yunha had instantly lost his life's purpose. He did not want to live the life of constant danger from his previous life. At this time, grandmother's warm words rang in his ears. "It's okay not to know. You're still young. You can understand slowly later. You'll experience happy things and sad things. You might reach life's lowest point, and you might also reach life's peak. But someday, you'll know what you want to do yourself. If you still don't know by then, just live until the day you figure it out." Hearing this, Yunha muttered to himself, "Grandmother, you're just telling me to live freely. Then his mother and grandmother hugged Yunha tightly. Whatever you do, we'll support you, because you are Yunha. His family's encouragement touched Yunha's already numb heart. Like the rising sun, bright and warm. After spending a pleasant winter vacation, he returned to the school life Yunha found tedious. So we had the opening scene. Taking advantage of when everyone's attention was not on him, Yunha timed it perfectly to sneak out. He then went to the library he frequented, but upon entering, Yunha made the well-behaved, quiet girl cry. Just because Yunha misspoke and revealed the entire ending of the book the girl was reading. Watching Haiyang crying loudly, Yunha, who did not know how to comfort girls, could only flee the library in embarrassment. However, one wave had not settled when another arose. Yunha, returning to the classroom, was immediately challenged by the blonde boy to a sword duel. This happened to suit everyone's intentions. On one side were the boys who were jealous of Yunha's good relationships with girls. On the other side was the rival girls' faction, and there was Xiyang, whom he had just made cry, putting Yunha in a difficult position. He had no choice but to take up the plastic sword, and amid everyone's cheers, the battle began. However, the outcome was predictable. How could the blonde boy beat Yunha's opponent? With just one strike, he completely incapacitated the blonde boy. His handsome and powerful fighting ability made Yunha become the target of the children's adoration. Amid the cheers, Yunha approached the king's sword and pulled out, the long sword symbolizing the strongest in kindergarten. However, not far from the kindergarten, in the silent park, opposite to the joyful laughter, a blood-stained phone lay alone on the ground. Only a black shadow holding a wooden stick could be vaguely seen. However, not long ago, the teacher had been happily distributing delicious ice cream. But just then, two different small hands chose the same chocolate ice cream. When Yunha discovered it was his nemesis Minji, his hand, which was originally about to let go, gripped tightly and refused to release it. The already hot weather escalated further due to their argument. The teacher helplessly watched the two bickering, then snatched the ice cream away. He broke it in half and placed the pieces in their respective hands. I've said that friends cannot fight, but Minji and Yunha were still unwilling to give up, proposing that whoever won could get the other half of the ice cream. This made the teacher so angry and his whole body shook, and he gave each of them a small knock on the head before they settled down. At this time, the teacher suddenly asked, "Why don't I see Yunhyuk? Usually he's the most eager one when there's food to eat." Upon hearing this, Minji responded nonchalantly, "He just lost to Yunha, and is probably hiding in the back garden practicing swordsmanship." Seeing this, the kind-hearted Haiyang volunteered to bring ice cream to Yunhyuk, which confused Minji. "He bullies you so much normally, yet you still want to deliver it to him?" Unexpectedly, Haiyang didn't mind at all, instead thinking, everyone else gets to eat, but he's the only one who doesn't get any. How heartbroken would he be if he found out? So the teacher handed the ice cream to Haiyang. Haiyang then ran toward the back garden. After Haiyang left, everyone began playing the freeze and unfreeze game. Yunha, who didn't want to participate, was forcibly dragged into the courtyard by Minji, who had been specially instructed by his sister. As expected, unlucky Yunha became the one who had to catch others, for revenge. He immediately targeted Minji, who had run far away. But just as he was about to touch her, Minji shouted freeze, forcing Yunha to abandon the chase. However, this little trick couldn't stop him. He then moved with lightning speed, catching a boy who hadn't shouted freeze. Thus, the catcher role was switched. He immediately sprinted behind Minji, revealing a triumphant smile. Unfreeze! Minji, who hadn't reacted in time, immediately switched roles with the little boy. The furious Minji frantically chased after Yunha. But just as Minji was about to catch Yunha, he suddenly braked and stopped in place, constantly looking around. Yunha couldn't imagine that such powerful killing intent would appear in the kindergarten. The next second, a green claw carrying sharp talons gripped tightly onto the nearby railing. Yunha turned around sharply, only to see a goblin wielding a giant axe on the wall, surveying everyone and letting out sinister, eerie laughter. With a boom, it landed on the ground, raised the giant axe in its hands, and swung it toward the nearest little girl. At the critical moment, a blue magical force knocked the giant axe from the goblin's hands, and the one who acted was Yunha. Unfortunately, there were too many goblins, and Yunha couldn't fight them while rescuing people at the same time. Just as he prepared to eliminate all the enemies before him in one go, a teacher suddenly appeared with a broom, blocking a goblin that wanted to attack Yunha, taking advantage of knocking down the monster. He then threw the broom forcefully. It hit the monster's weak point hard. He then grabbed Yunha and picked up the little girl whose legs had gone weak, quickly fleeing the scene. Unfortunately, the teacher wasn't a professional player, and the weight of two children greatly reduced his movement speed. The first goblin to recover was already swinging its giant axe and flying through the air. Seeing this, Yunha gathered his magical power, and with just a whoosh sound, he instantly made the airborne goblin lose consciousness, and it was crashing into its companions rushing from behind. Thanks to this gap, the teacher safely brought everyone to a safe zone. The teacher, who had been motionless for a long time, instantly collapsed to the ground. At this moment, Yunha began looking around, but suddenly discovered Haiyang and Yunhyuk were nowhere to be seen here. The teacher anxiously jumped up, about to rush toward the back garden, but was grabbed by a female teacher nearby. "You're the only one here with magical power. If you leave, no one can guarantee the children's safety." Meanwhile, a scream came from the back garden. At this moment, a goblin was holding the trembling Yunhyuk. Then it raised its giant axe to strike down at Eunhyuk. At the critical moment, Hyung desperately pushed the magical power within her body, sending the goblin flying dozens of meters away. But this strike didn't cause any damage to the goblin. Watching the monster stagger forward, Yunhyuk closed his eyes. Suddenly he grabbed the stunned Hyung and ran toward the distance. But the goblin revealed a sinister smile, because there was nowhere for the two to hide. So Eunhyuk told Hyung to climb to the very top of the equipment. Then he raised the plastic sword in his hand, facing the terrifying goblin alone. Even though he knew he couldn't win, even though his hands couldn't even hold the sword properly. Thinking of the scene where Flame Demon killed Krakens with his sword on TV, his courage filled his entire body at this moment. Don't you dare take another step. As long as I do what I practiced in training, there will definitely be no problem. However, reality was ultimately cruel. The huge difference in strength was fully demonstrated the moment their weapons clashed. The sword in his hand was knocked far away. When facing the monster again, fear once more filled his entire body, and his limbs lost all ability to move. Just as the monster's giant axe was about to take Eunhyuk's life, there was a bang sound, and Yunha appeared before everyone wielding a long sword. You did very well. You're a real man. Leave the rest to me. Just then, the angry goblin raised its giant axe and attacked Yunha. However, after just 3 sounds of blade clashing, the monster that seemed invincible before everyone's eyes was split in 2 by Yunha's plastic sword with just 1 strike, leaving only a sapphire blue gem. Falling to the ground, Yunha, who was about to show off, was immediately hugged tightly by the two. They were expressing their joy of surviving and their fear when facing the goblin. After sending the two back to the classroom, Yunha came to the courtyard again. His magical power was spreading outward from himself as the center. After confirming the location of another goblin, he instantly appeared before it, gritting his teeth and raising the handmade knife wrapped in magical power, leaping behind the goblin. And with lightning speed, he split the last goblin in 2. After eliminating the goblins, the handmade knife in Yunha's hand was completely destroyed. Then it was thrown beside the magic stone. See whose kindergarten you've broken into. Since I caught you, you all have to die. Soon the Adventurers Guild led a large group to the kindergarten. At this moment, a player was asking Yunha, did you really defeat these monsters? The guilty Yunha made up a lame excuse. When I encountered them, they were already covered in wounds. They didn't seem to get along well, and one was killed by its companion. Hearing this, the player was puzzled. Even though goblins are only level 7 small monsters, they definitely wouldn't be weak enough to be defeated by a 7-year-old child. After all, only weapons infused with magical power can destroy a monster's core and eliminate it. Unfortunately, there was no surveillance around, so they could only believe Yunha's explanation. The next day, the government held a press conference, reflecting on the incident. And the government announced they would begin improving safety supervision around kindergartens, while they also gave Yunha a certificate of Brave Child Award. The kindergarten teachers and classmates applauded happily upon seeing this. But Yunha wasn't happy at all, thinking to himself, I'm definitely dead this time. How am I going to explain this to mom and dad? 2.5 years later, Yunha welcomed his first day of elementary school. What a coincidence. The kindergarten companions he had spent 3 years with also entered the same elementary school as Yunha, and they were even assigned to the same class. Yunha had planned to keep low-key at school, but because he had previously saved Yunhyuk and Hyang from the goblins, Yunhyuk announced on the first day, he's my boss. I am so embarrassed, because I am an old man who's actually 50 years old. Fortunately, the farce didn't last long, and it was soon Hyang's turn for self-introduction. But this made the little friends break out in cold sweat. After kindergarten life ended, Hyang's father invited everyone to visit their home. Who would have thought this seemingly gentle and refined man was actually skilled both in social settings and in the kitchen? The carefully prepared delicious food couldn't be faulted even by the usually pickiest little chubby kid. Watching everyone eat so happily, even Una couldn't help but take a sip of the drink. But the next second, Yunha's body suddenly trembled. He simply couldn't believe that an ordinary cup of hot milk could restore the magical power he had exhausted from training. At this moment, an uncertain guess emerged. Could this be a magic potion? A potion that helps restore magical power within the body? The magical power potion that players definitely carry when fighting magical creatures? Because for those who manipulate magical power, this is their second life. Watching Yunha lost in thought, Hyang quickly asked, doesn't it taste good? But Yunha didn't answer, instead asking Hyang, what's your father's name? My dad? His name is Jong Sakun. Hearing this, Yunha's heart was immediately shocked. Then he excitedly moved close to Hyang, making the young girl blush, because this seemingly ordinary man before them would break the magical potion market structure in the future. His skill filtering could strictly extract the purest magical power from materials, changing the previously complex magical power recovery methods. But in the previous life, he had never heard of him having a daughter. Could it be that because the future changed, he survived? Thinking of this, Yunha gently patted Hyang's shoulder. After entering elementary school, if anyone bullies you, you must tell me. I won't let them off. Little did he know, this sentence stirred the young girl's heart even more, only getting a soft response. Thank you. Back in the classroom, through everyone's efforts during winter break, Hayoung finally broke through her introverted and shy personality. She boldly introduced herself in the classroom. Her cute smile and gentle words won everyone's unanimous praise. But the next moment, the classroom fell into silence. Just because the girl with tiger ears before them was a demi-human, she was despised by everyone. Demi-humans are children produced by genetic mutations due to unbalanced magical power. And those people who lost family members to monsters because of their own powerlessness. They viewed demi-humans who looked like monsters as objects of hatred. This also caused their descendants to naturally have no good feelings toward demi-humans, even viewing them as monsters. After the boring magical power test ended, everyone came to the cafeteria to eat. But as soon as they sat down, the commotion in the distance attracted everyone's attention. The restless demi-human girl looked around, trying to find a quiet place to eat. Just then, she spotted an empty seat. But before she could speak, she was mocked by a nearby child. "Are you crazy? What makes you think you can sit with us?" The girl was already hurt and brokenhearted, but she still bowed her head to apologize to those who mocked her. The scene before him triggered Yunha's bad memories. Bara, his former best comrade, was also a demi-human. Because Yunha was very caring toward the demi-humans in the team, the kind-hearted Bara advised Yunha not to be overly sympathetic. Don't think you should take extra care of someone just because they're a demi-human. Although there are kind demi-humans, the vast majority are evil and dirty inside. Yunha, who wouldn't listen, kicked him out of the tent after he finished speaking. Until one day, Bara died under a monster's scythe trying to protect me. Before that, he had brought up the topic they had discussed before, although there are many bad demi-humans in this world. I hope Brother Yunha won't ignore demi-humans just because of their identity. Then Yunha snatched the tray from the girl's hands and left without looking back. "Come to our table. My friends have saved you a seat." Hearing this, the girl said worriedly, "But if you help me, you'll be isolated by others later." Unexpectedly, Yunha said, "I don't care." This incident immediately spread throughout the school, with everyone exploring which kindergarten Yunha came from. From this moment on, this proud girl with a black mole on her chin completely formed a grudge against Yunha and his group. After Seona sat down under Yunha's guidance, everyone immediately comforted her. "Yunha is just unreasonably stubborn like this, please understand." Then they handed over warm barley tea. "Let's get along well from now on." Seona, still somewhat shy and awkward, seeing the genuine care and friendship in their eyes, drank the hot barley tea in one gulp, then ate her lunch in big bites. At this moment, the girl's grievances poured out with her tears, and what filled her instead was the warmth and longing for friendship. To help Seona integrate into the team faster, after school they came to the garden to start their daily game of tag. Because this game not only trains everyone's hiding abilities, but also increases proficiency in controlling magical power. Hearing this, Seona said worriedly, "But I can't manipulate magical power." "It's okay, you're very good at hiding your presence. And you have excellent athletic abilities. As long as you don't get touched, you won't be caught." As Yunha finished his countdown, in just moments, he easily caught 3 people. But Yunha couldn't sense Hayoung and Seona's presence at all, so he decided to look for Seona first. Then rustling sounds came from distant bushes, and Yunha immediately ran toward the bushes. But when he arrived, Seona had already escaped, leaving only her tail swishing provocatively. Just as Yunha predicted, no matter what methods he used, just when Yunha was about to catch Seona, she would easily dodge him. Yunha frantically launched a verbal offensive from below. "Anyone who doesn't come down is a puppy." Watching Yunha break the rules by using magical power, the others immediately fled without a word. This made Yunha lose his composure in anger, frantically scratching his head. "In that case, I'll catch you all one by one." Watching the others run away, a complex emotion emerged on Seona's face, as if celebrating that she had met the right group of people at the best age. Meanwhile, Hayoung had already run to a secluded corner. After using magical power to sense that this was the edge of the field, she decided to hide here. But just then, towering book mountains in the distance caught her attention. For a literary girl like Hayoung, this instantly captivated her, and she walked step by step toward the sea of books. After selecting a few heartwarming books, Hayoung couldn't help but sigh. "This place is simply heaven." She immediately forgot she was still in the middle of a tag game. But she quickly realized she had intruded into someone else's room and was about to leave when a blood-red book caught her attention again. Not having learned English, she didn't know the book's title. Then an elderly voice spoke. "This book is called Alice in Wonderland." Then an old man with white hair suddenly appeared behind Hayoung, just making eye contact with him. Made Hayoung nervous and at a loss. After a long while, Yunha found him through the magical power Hayoung was emitting, and walked gloomily into the room. Hayoung was startled. "Hello, my friend went missing during the game, so I came to look for him. I'm sorry for troubling you." The old man smiled and said, "No problem at all. I am so lonely and I was so happy when Hayoung came. Next time, remember to tell your friends first before coming to play with Grandpa. I'd also love to have a friend who loves reading." Then Hayoung said quietly, "I'm sorry, I forgot about it." Yunha angrily gave her a brain flick. "Next time you go anywhere, you must tell me, understand?" Then Hayoung said goodbye to Grandpa. "I'll come again tomorrow. Please continue reading Alice in Wonderland to me then." The old man then said, "How about I send you home?" Soon a brand new Maybach came to the door, taking each child who lived far away to their homes safely. At this moment, Yunha shed unworthy tears. I really envy them. I've never ridden in such a car. Yunha welcomed their first spring outing. The school deliberately hid treasures in the back mountain, letting students form teams to explore on their own. Seeing that the treasures on the outskirts had been dug up by other teams, the unwilling, hot-blooded duo immediately led everyone toward the deep mountains to hunt for treasure. But as soon as they entered, a shrill scream caught everyone's attention. Hearing this, Yunha immediately became tense, quickly telling everyone to be quiet. As urgent footsteps grew closer, a crazed magical creature emerged from the deep mountains. The saliva dripping freely through the air made the creature eager to enjoy the feast before its eyes. At this moment, a strong sense of crisis swept through Yunha's entire body. Why does it have to be today? What made Yunha so fearful was the Hanbake mountain flower viewing incident from the previous life. With the city's protective barrier in place, for some unknown reason, magical creatures that had always lived on the outskirts broke through the protective barrier and ran south all the way to Hanbake Mountain, causing countless innocent civilians to die at the hands of magical creatures. But now it had happened a whole month early. What exactly happened to cause the future to change again? While Yunha was contemplating, the magical creature had already opened its bloody mouth and attacked everyone. Although everyone had been receiving special training from Yunha, when truly facing a magical creature, their hands and feet still wouldn't obey and they collapsed to the ground. At the critical moment, Yunha flew forward with a kick, directly disrupting the creature's internal organs. Then he pulled out a fork and infused it with magical power, viciously stabbing toward the creature's heart. Such a bloody and brutal scene completely terrified his nearby companions. The current Yunha had completely exceeded their understanding, because what they didn't know was that whenever Yunha fought desperately with monsters, he would once again become that immortal, strongest player. But even so, Yunha still wasn't confident he could safely escort all his little friends down the mountain, because hunting dogs are pack animals. At this moment, there must be countless hunting dogs rushing down from the mountain. If there was any viable method, there was only one. Then Yunha looked coldly at everyone. From now on, run down the mountain immediately. Find players, and try to suppress your magical power leakage as much as possible. I will stay here alone to snipe the remaining magical creatures. The reason Yunha dared to do this was entirely thanks to the food made by Haiyang's father, which could maximally restore Yunha's depleted magical power. He then poured his lunch into the bushes, using the scarce magical power in the food to interfere with the hunting dog's sensitive magical scent abilities. After doing this, Yunha activated his magical perception. Just as he had predicted, the food's interference made the magical creatures lose their sense of direction, successfully buying his companions time to escape. Then Yunha quickly rushed toward the hunting dog leader, but he saw a scene that made his hair stand on end. Black shadows covered the entire mountaintop. Impossible to imagine how many monsters had gathered here. Just then, Yunha heard a scream that shook the heavens and earth. Sure enough, the players stationed in the mountains had all without exception become food to fill the hunting dogs' bellies. But this was actually good news for Yunha, as the weapons left behind by the players could perfectly compensate for Yunha's lack of attack power. You should know these weapons were all made from metals containing magical power. So even without infusing magical power, Yunha could kill the monsters before him with physical strength alone. Yunha immediately beckoned provocatively, "Come here." The already hungry hunting dogs immediately swarmed forward, leaping through the air toward Yunha. Little did they know this played right into Yunha's hands. At this moment, the hunting dogs had completely exposed their weakest abdomen. Seeing this, Yunha hesitated no more, swinging his blade viciously into the hunting dog's abdomen. Then he used the skill sky step, moving like lightning through the monster pack, instantly slaying all the attacking hunting dogs. Then he gathered magical power in his palm, using the recoil force to fly into the air, attaching magical power to his long sword. In an instant, magnificent lightning magic extended from the sword tip for dozens of meters. Then he swung mightily, countless magical particles penetrating the hunting dogs' hard bodies. Then using the recoil force again, he drew a pentagram in the air, with it as the center shooting outward in all directions, instantly devouring all hunting dogs within 200 miles. After clearing the hunting dogs here, Yunha swiftly shuttled through the forest. Suddenly his expression brightened, and below him, it was the level 6 monster, Hellhound. As long as he defeated it, this crisis would be completely resolved. Then Yunha's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. Slicing through the flames, the Hellhound spat out. Immediately, countless magical lightning poured down like raindrops, eliminating all the hunting dogs around the Hellhound. But before he could celebrate, countless more hunting dogs slowly emerged from the shadows. With the Hellhound's command, "Kill him!" Yunha once again battled with hundreds of hunting dogs. Meanwhile, Haiyang's group was about to reach the foot of the mountain, but a massive ball of black magical power suddenly blocked their path. What made Haiyang and the others even more desperate was that the magical creature emerging from it was actually a mutant variant among the hunting dogs. The hunting dog's single howl instantly summoned hundreds of hunting dogs out of thin air, slowly forcing everyone into a dead end until there was nowhere to retreat. At the critical moment, Yunhyuk gripped the branch in his hand and took a deep breath. Facing the howling hunting dog, he swung forward mightily. Unexpectedly, a small branch actually caused considerable damage to the hunting dog. This immediately gave Yunhyuk hope. At this moment, he was like a war god, with his sword leaving nothing alive in its wake. But he still underestimated the hunting dog's cunning. In just an instant, his back was torn open with a long wound. Another hunting dog also took the opportunity to snatch the weapon from Yunha's hands. Having lost his weapon, he instantly became a toy under the hunting dog's claws. With just a little toying, Yunha completely lost his fighting ability. Then the hunting dog opened its bloody mouth toward him. Just as the monster's giant axe was about to take Yunha's life, space suddenly froze. Alien tears flowed from Siona's blood-red pupils. Past memories kept replaying in her mind. At this moment, the next second, golden magical power swirled around Siona's entire body, spreading outward from her as the center point, instantly enveloping the entire Hanbaek mountain. Then a blue barrier suddenly surrounded everyone, protecting them from the hunting dog's attacks. Just as they thought they were safe, countless violent tornadoes slowly approached them. Then a figure suddenly appeared in midair, stepping on clear wind as she walked toward the ground. After seeing the true appearance of the newcomer, the already panicked crowd immediately breathed a sigh of relief. The newcomer was one of the 12 thrones, Zodiac, Shin Se-young. After confirming the children were unharmed, she turned around. But the next second, her expression became extremely grim. Because as a hero protecting this city, she hadn't received any reports of magical creature invasion. At this moment, self-blame and anger filled Shin Se-young's heart. Magnificent and violent magical power gathered in her right hand. She would make these monsters pay the proper price for their actions. The next second, 2 massive tornadoes rose from the ground. The combination of magical power and wind crazily ravaged everything around. As Shin Se-young raised her left hand, in an instant, the magic wolves turned into pools of blood in the collision of air currents. The pure tornado was stained with an eerie purple color, until heaven and earth returned to tranquility. Only then did Shin Se-young remember the children under 6 behind her. She quickly went to comfort and apologize, fearing she had left huge trauma in their young hearts. Unexpectedly, the little friends were not only unafraid but kept praising, "Oh my god, you are so strong and cool," constantly asking if Shin Se-young was the strongest player. Such behavior that defied common sense made Shin Se-young deeply admire them, facing magical creature attacks for the first time and still maintaining composure. However, the most important thing now was to check if the little friends had internal injuries. So Shin Se-young activated her magic eyes. But the next second, she suddenly hugged Haiyang, because she hadn't discovered a young genius with such amazing magical power within her body for a long time. Then she held Haiyang's little face lovingly, asking if she wanted to become a player. But before Haiyang could answer, Onyuk suddenly popped up from the middle, eagerly declaring, "I want to become a player too!" Thinking of this little guy's fearless performance just now, Shin Se-young excitedly hugged both of them tightly. The 12 thrones finally have successors. After hugging them until their souls nearly left their bodies, Shin Se-young looked at the frightened demi-human girl nearby and praised her generously. If Shiona hadn't activated telepathy, Shin Se-young couldn't have arrived in time to save them. Hearing this, Shiona could no longer hold back, tears falling like rain. Because this was not only the first time she received praise and recognition from humans other than Yunha, it was also the first time she truly helped her companions. Meanwhile, Yunha's battle with the Hellhound was about to reach its conclusion. After drinking the magical power potion, Yunha's body reached its peak at this moment. As the thermos fell to the ground, magnificent magical power burst forth from behind Yunha. The originally small blade evolved into a divine sword, capable of cutting through anything. In just an instant, the hunting dogs turned to ash in the lightning and thunder. The vast battlefield held only the Hellhound and Yunha. Just as Yunha prepared to strike while the iron was hot and eliminate the Hellhound, all the meridians in his body let out painful wails. Although Yunha had anticipated this, he hadn't expected it to come so early. For a 6-year-old body, the rapid and violent circulation of magical power ultimately brought too great a burden. But so what? Before coming, Yunha had already made up his mind. He would protect everything he cherished in this life. So he raised his long sword again to battle the Hellhound. However, the Hellhound truly deserved to be classified as a special level 6 intelligent magical beast. It sensed Yunha's physical decline and nearly depleted magical power. It immediately distanced itself from Yunha, constantly using fireballs and shadows to exhaust Yunha's remaining stamina. It forced Yunha to use his remaining magical power to cut through the constantly attacking shadow magic balls. Yunha also understood the Hellhound's intention and immediately decided to go all out. Ignoring the highly corrosive dark magical power before him, he cut through the endless darkness to reach the Hellhound. Unexpectedly, the Hellhound was prepared. The scorching flames in its mouth had been building up, instantly swallowing Yunha's small figure. The magical barrier kept cracking until it shattered. The exhausted Yunha struggled to get up from the ground. He never expected that even using all his magical power couldn't block this attack. At this moment, Yunha collapsed against his long sword, just like in the previous life. Even when surrounded by numerous magical creatures, not a single person was willing to lend a hand, because that was the mad player who struck fear into everyone's hearts. The two lifetimes seemed to interweave at this moment. At this moment, Yunha seemed to understand the true meaning of the skill Berserk. Only in the most extreme situations would Berserk truly show its terrifying power. In an instant, magnificent and violent magical power shot skyward. The fierce lightning power shattered the earth inch by inch. The terrifying magical power made even the Hellhound feel fear. When Yunha appeared again, the previously invincible Hellhound was like a piece of paper under Yunha's short sword. It was completely defenseless. The Hellhound that had lost its limbs completely lost its ability to move. What awaited it was only Yunha's will to kill and his sword that could cut through anything. As both sides' magical powers collided, the Hellhound decided to use the most dangerous yet safest method. Black magical power instantly gathered into a ball. As long as no one could break it, it would evolve once more, and Yunha would no longer be its match. But it didn't know that under the skill Berserk, even the hardest barrier was just a piece of paper to Yunha. As Yunha thrust his long sword in, with just a cracked sound, the barrier split in half. In the Hellhound's eyes, Yunha was like Satan descending from hell. No one could stop him, and it was doomed to die. As Yunha raised his longsword again, the exhausted Hellhound could only watch the longsword slicing through its head. The Hanbake mountain flower viewing incident that had shocked the world in the previous life ended in the hands of a 6-year-old child. As the magical creature turned into golden light particles and the sunset rose, Yunha could no longer hold on, and collapsed to the ground with a thud. But when he woke up in the hospital, the first person he saw wasn't his parents, but Zodiac, Shin Seung. This made Yunha's heart tremble. Did she discover something? Fortunately, Shin Seung only chatted casually with him, and informed Yunha that his friends were all safe. However, the next second, Shin Se-young completely changed from her neighborly big sister demeanor, pressing close to Yunha and asking unquestionably, "Those monsters there should all have been killed by you, right?" I still wanted to use age as an excuse to refute, but was completely blocked by Shin Se-young's next words. It turned out that during the time Yunha was unconscious, she had people test the fingerprints on the short sword. Hearing this, Yunha fell into a long silence. This monster elimination was too far-fetched. There simply wasn't time for Yunha to clean up his traces. So no matter how he argued, it would be useless. Better to make a deal with the 12 thrones. Thinking of this, I sat up straight and said, "Seriously, let's make a deal. You don't expose my identity, and I can provide you with very important intelligence." Soon after, Shin Se-young left the hospital. Sitting in her car, her mind kept replaying the intelligence Yunha had just provided. "If you want to prove your husband's innocence, then try investigating the heirs of the Tanjin group. Among those heirs, focus on the female heirs. And you need to investigate the relationship between your Kanghai team captain and them." Hearing this, Shin Se-young's pupils suddenly contracted, looking at Yunha in disbelief. Then she said coldly, "Are you sure you can take responsibility for these words?" But Yunha answered carelessly, "If you can't find anything, then I'll unconditionally join your battle team." Thinking of this, Shin Se-young no longer hesitated and ordered her subordinates to investigate the female heirs of the Tanjin group, and also requested reports on monster levels in the southern district. Because before leaving, Yunha had given her a small piece of intelligence. Be careful of new types of monsters appearing in the teleportation gates. If you underestimate them, it will definitely cause huge losses. Just as she was about to ask Yunha where this intelligence came from, Yunha's arrogant and unrestrained gaze left a deep impression on her even now. So by the next afternoon, news about the Hanbake Mountain incident was spreading everywhere online. Shin Se-young also fulfilled Yunha's request, with the report stating that the Hellhound was defeated by Zodiac of the 12 Thrones. Everything was normal up to this point. But the next report left everyone bewildered. On the day after the Hanbake Mountain incident, the vice captain of the Kanghai team committed suicide at home, with no one knowing the reason. Time quickly washed away people's memories. Amidst laughter and joy, Siona welcomed her birthday, her tail spinning like a propeller, and her red little face expressed her inner surprise. You should know, she had never revealed her birthday before. Hearing this, Minji said proudly, "As your good friend, how could I not know your birthday?" But the next second, Yunha exposed the pretentious Minji. "You clearly pestered the teacher relentlessly, asking him to tell you Siona's birthday." Hearing this, tears also welled up in Siona's eyes. But the next second, her companions suddenly distanced themselves from her, treating Siona like a stranger, leaving only Siona alone and confused. Little did she know an even bigger surprise awaited that evening. When 8 o'clock arrived, Siona experienced her first magnificent birthday party in life, the fireworks exploding in her ears upon entering. And the party scene carefully prepared by her companions touched her sensitive heart bit by bit. She had thought everyone was deliberately isolating her, but unexpectedly, they had done so much for her behind the scenes. So amidst laughter and joy, Siona happily spent her 8th birthday. At this time, Minji asked, "Aren't you going to Jin Senna's birthday party? Didn't she threaten you to attend using your father being a company employee?" However, Yunha didn't care at all. Her father is just a fox borrowing the tiger's power, a mere crab, nothing to fear. So stop worrying unnecessarily and go eat, foodie Minji. Hearing this, Minji, who had wanted to show concern, was instantly annoyed and walked away. However, Yunha's heart still felt somewhat worried. Although it's somewhat troublesome, it doesn't matter to him. Whether it's KK Group or KK Pharmaceuticals, if anyone dares touch my family, I'll definitely make them pay a painful price. However, soon, Yunha and Jin Senna's first conflict arrived. This day was the school's first sports day. To encourage the little friend's enthusiasm, the teacher didn't hesitate to empty her wallet to feed these little chubby kids just to win first place in the sports meet. This was also the first time Minji truly understood Yunha. He wasn't a mama's boy, but he totally has a sister complex. In dozens of sports competitions, Yunha only paid attention to his sister's events, drawing resentful glances from the girls nearby. During this period, Jin Sena launched her first offensive against Yunha, even calling her father Jin Youngwon for this. He determined to make Yunha become his daughter's obedient follower. Unexpectedly, Yunha not only ignored this but opened with a big move. Just a small pharmaceutical company, so much bullshit. However, this remark struck a nerve deep within Jin Youngwon's heart. He raised his hand to slap Yunha, but just as he was about to touch Yunha, his palm suddenly froze, along with his entire body becoming immobilized. Jin Youngwon could hardly believe his eyes at this moment. How could this young child display such a murderous expression, just like when he faced the president? Then Yunha deflected his hand and taunted, "What's wrong, are you scared now?" Hearing this, Jin Youngwon changed his palm into a fist, completely disregarding his status as he attacked Yunha. But just at that moment, a figure blocked his path and forcefully knocked Jin Youngwon to the ground. Under his bewildered gaze, he watched the gentle man removing his glasses and slick back his hair. This instantly left Jin Youngwon frightened and at a loss. He put on a fawning expression and apologetically said this was a misunderstanding. This sudden change in attitude left Yunha behind him stunned. He never expected that his father's identity was actually the section chief of the strategic department at Sirius Group, the world's second-largest corporation. One must know that all equipment and vehicles worldwide were concentrated under this group, and if they angered them, it would be impossible to purchase any weapons infused with magical power. However, it was understandable that Yunha didn't know this. In his previous life, his father had died during the Kraken invasion, so his memories related to family had stopped at age 3. Seeing that Yunha's father was still not appeased, Jin Youngwon quickly bowed 90 degrees in apology. He even threatened his own daughter, making her publicly apologize to Yunha in front of everyone. Jin Sena, who had been pampered since childhood, could hardly bear such humiliation. The mockery and gossip from classmates, and the constant whispers surrounding her ears, completely shattered her prideful heart. Her noble head lowered for the first time before peers of her age. After apologizing, she covered her face and rushed out, and as the drama ended, Yunha's father warned Jin Youngwon once more before leaving with a dark expression. Seeing this, Yunha couldn't help but feel apprehensive, thinking he might get scolded later. Unexpectedly, as soon as they reached a quiet area, his father knelt on one knee and gently comforted him. "If something like this happens again, you must tell mom and dad. Don't try to handle it yourself. We hope you can rely on your parents." These warm words, like a gentle breeze drifting through the campus, gradually seeped into Yunha's heart that had lacked familial love in his previous life. At this moment, he had only one thought: in this lifetime, I absolutely cannot lose this warmth again. But just when Yunha thought he could continue living an ordinary and peaceful life, danger struck once more. In some unknown, unfinished building, two men were secretly reaching an agreement. As the suited man gestured and brought out a silver briefcase, opening it revealed 15 billion in cash packed inside. But the cloaked man only glanced at it once. The next second, both the money and the cloaked man vanished simultaneously, leaving only the panicked subordinates and the suited man. However, the suited man remained completely calm, instead showing a sly smile at the corner of his mouth. Subsequently, the entire unfinished building echoed with his unrestrained laughter. Meanwhile, my sister and I arrived at Dawn Department Store. Also accompanying us were our neighbors, the Bruno couple. But when Yunha saw the crowded supermarket hall, he couldn't help but feel a bit timid. Immediately, a pair of hands were placed on his shoulders. "I won't let you escape today. The journey is just beginning." Speaking of which, there was a reason why Yunha had become so familiar with the Bruno couple, and even now, he still found it magical. Bruno, who usually appeared honest and simple, could perfectly conceal his magical power. What shocked him even more was that while others used phone watches to locate their children, Bruno used military-grade high-precision GPS. This frightened Yunha so much that he quickly asked, "Are you sure Julieta knows you have this thing?" After some pleasantries, the four entered the supermarket to select clothing. But just then, Yunha suddenly sensed intense spiritual energy fluctuations. He quickly pinpointed the source, and the tattoo carved on this person's body belonged to the infamous first-class criminal known as Anonymous, who had caused Yunha considerable trouble in his previous life. So Yunha immediately gave a subtle warning, "Uncle Bruno, don't you think something's strange?" Hearing this, Bruno looked around and gave the precise answer that 3 people seemed off. After getting Bruno's confirmation, Yunha condensed 3 clusters of spiritual energy in his hand, then launched them at extremely high speed toward those 3 people. Through simple probing, Yunha immediately analyzed that these 3 were well-trained players, and they definitely weren't players affiliated with the police force. More importantly, the hooded man sitting in the chair had been monitoring everything happening throughout the entire mall from beginning to end, so Yunha decided to quietly follow behind. At this moment, the bald man pulled out a mysterious crystal from his pocket, then carelessly threw it on the ground. The immense magical power demonstrated the powerful spiritual energy contained within the magic stone. The scene before him left Yunha in disbelief. The next second, torrential magical power burst forth from the magic stone as its center. This would ultimately result in a magical convergence black hole, appearing in a place where it should never exist. Instantly, countless demons emerged from the black hole, mercilessly tearing at the surrounding ordinary people without magical power. The supermarket immediately fell into chaos. Yunha looked in horror at Anonymous on the second floor, who shouted loudly, "Kill everyone in the supermarket!" At this moment, Yunha could no longer remain calm. What had he done to cause the future to change once again? Even when demons attacked him from behind, Yunha showed no reaction. Fortunately, Bruno intervened in time, knocking down the demon with one punch, saving Yunha from danger. Then Bruno grabbed Yunha's shoulder and encouraged him, "Pull yourself together, Yunha! We must find Julie and your sister now. Can you do it?" The mention of his sister's name successfully awakened the dazed Yunha. That's right, the priority was to rescue his sister and Julieta. But as they stepped onto the elevator, they were blocked by the black-hatted man in front. "So the magical power came from you earlier? Where are you rushing off to now?" Seeing the magical power fluctuations emanating from the man before him, Yunha quickly determined he was at most B rank and was about to finish him with one strike. Unexpectedly, Bruno rushed forward directly and knocked out the black-hatted man with a single punch. Then Yunha kicked the black-hatted man's dick. The pain woke him from unconsciousness, only to lose consciousness again. This was because in his previous life, Yunha had been severely scolded for not leaving anyone alive. They then rushed urgently toward the 5th floor. Unlike the lucky Yunha, Julieta and his sister were quite unfortunate. Dozens of hounds were chasing relentlessly behind them. Seeing the demons about to catch up, Julieta turned and fired several magical bullets, but to his surprise, unlike ordinary demon wolves, these demon wolves were not only enormous, but also exceptionally agile. At this rate, before they could escape, their magical power would be depleted first. Even worse, Julieta, who lacked magical equipment, even with considerable combat ability, could hardly handle hundreds of demon wolves with just a coat hanger. Just when the two didn't know what to do, Yunha suddenly discovered an escalator on the right side and urgently called for Julieta to run toward it. Unexpectedly, Julieta only glanced once before anxiously shouting for Yunha not to go there. But it was too late, as demon wolves hiding in the shadows had already positioned themselves in front of Yunha. In the critical moment, the magical power within Yunha seemed to become part of her body. She not only dodged this fatal strike, but also kicked the demon wolf over the railing. Before they could celebrate, the demon wolves had already surrounded them completely with no escape route. At this moment, a bold idea emerged in both their minds. They stood on the railing, then leaped into midair, landing steadily on the escalator 10 meters away. They ran downstairs without looking back. Unexpectedly, the demon wolves were faster than them, appearing behind everyone in just moments. Fortunately, there was always a way out. Julieta grabbed a nearby sign. With lightning speed, she knocked away 3 pursuing demon wolves. This scene was witnessed by Yunha and his group who had just arrived. Seeing both were safe, they breathed a slight sigh of relief, then immediately began searching through boxes and cabinets, looking for usable magical equipment. But the next second, Yunha's expression suddenly turned cold, because Anonymous, the culprit behind all this, was slowly approaching his sister. Bone-chilling killing intent emanated from Yunha's eyes. "Uncle Bruno, you go join up with sister first, and I will deal with him." Meanwhile, Julieta and her group, who had just escaped from the demon wolves, immediately encountered 2 perverts. Seeing this, Julieta quickly protected Yunha behind her and quietly told her to find a place to hide, because she wasn't confident he could defeat 2 well-equipped players while lacking magical equipment. But the next second, a figure suddenly appeared behind Yunha, reaching out to grab her. Fortunately, Julieta reacted in time, swinging the sign to strike, but just as it was about to hit the man, a gunshot rang out from the distance, not only shattering the sign in Julieta's hand but also separating the distance between her and Yunha. Watching the pervert approach Yunha step by step, extending his evil right hand, however, the moment the two made contact, a torrential magical power exploded from their center. 2 magical barriers suddenly appeared before them, creating magical entanglement. Just when Yunha thought she was temporarily safe, the pervert pulled out a magical dagger from his side, then actively ended his defense, continuously stabbing at Yunha's magical barrier. Fortunately, Yunha's magical power was sufficiently dense. Even though the dagger's blade had curled, it couldn't break through her defense. Seeing this, the pervert stopped pretending. In Yunha's incredulous gaze, he penetrated with one hand what she thought was an impregnable magical barrier, gripping Yunha's slender arm tightly. "Got you!" In the critical moment, several scorching magical particle bullets flew at high speed, buying precious escape time for Yunha. But just as Julieta was continuously firing magical particle bullets, a man suddenly appeared behind her. This frightened her into immediately pulling back to a safe distance. She continuously attacked the man. But seeing that the magical bullets couldn't even penetrate the man's magical barrier, Julieta gritted her teeth, seemingly making some major decision. The next second, the magical bullets not only pierced through the man's proud barrier but even penetrated his right shoulder, with blood dripping from his clothes to the ground. At this moment, Julieta was surrounded by torrential and heavy magical power, with a magical array representing amplification skills floating before her. Meanwhile, Yunha was maneuvering in the narrow room with the pervert, using magical power to jump to the top, continuously throwing objects at the pervert. Seeing this, the pervert kicked and broke the support pillar of the shelf. Watching Yunha fall from above, his face showed a sly smile, but the next second, his expression filled with panic. He saw Yunha's heavy and solid magical power pressing down on him, crackling with energy. The huge magical power difference made him unable to hold on much longer. Then Yunha used the momentum to jump into mid-air. Images of Julieta's amplification array technique flashed through her mind. A magical orb appeared in her hand. With a thunderous sound, a violent explosion echoed from within the supermarket. The man outside was startled by the noise. Could it be that the pervert had actually lost to a little girl? Just as he thought, Yunha emerged from the smoke holding a wooden stick. But this gave the man an opportunity. Taking advantage of Julieta's moment of calling out to Yunha, red chains emerged from the ground, binding her. Then the man appeared behind Julieta, threatening, "If you dare move again, your beloved Julieta will get hurt." Unexpectedly, the next second, Yunha was slammed to the ground with a crash, and the perpetrator was the pervert who had been buried in the rubble. The suffocating sensation made Yunha's consciousness increasingly blurred, but her desire to survive climbed to its peak. The next second, rampaging magical power burst forth from within Yunha. The scene before him made the pervert panic immediately. If he allowed this level of magical power to self-destruct, none of them would survive. Seeing this, the man raised the dagger in his hand, stabbing Julieta in the abdomen repeatedly. "If you don't stop releasing magical power, don't blame me for being ruthless." But the moment Yunha stopped her magical power, she was knocked unconscious by the pervert with a blow to the head, watching Julieta being taken away into the distance. A weak voice sounded in her mind, "Do you want power?" At this moment, Yunha looked incredulously at everything around her, just about to accept this mysterious power. But her brother's voice interrupted her. It turned out that long ago, Yunha had specifically held hands with her and made a promise to never listen to this voice again. But as Yunha watched her cherished person being taken away, an unprecedented strong conviction arose in her heart. "I also want to use my own hands to protect the people I want to protect." So Yunha staggered to her feet. "I'm sorry, Yunha. Please grant me powerful strength." Just as a golden light emerged from her eyes, a sound of flesh and blood collision interrupted this sacrificial ceremony. Then Bruno covered her with his coat and patted her head, saying, "You did very well, Yunha. Leave the rest to me." As soon as he finished speaking, a long sleeping giant bear awakened completely at this moment. These people had no idea what terrifying existence they had provoked. Bruno flashed to the pervert's front, rescuing Julieta with one hand, while embedding the other into the ground. His trembling arms displayed Bruno's furious heart. The pervert's accomplice lying behind seemed oblivious to the power disparity between them. Picking up the dagger that had fallen to the ground, he swiftly stabbed toward the remorseful Bruno. However, what greeted him was only Bruno's fist filled with rage. "The harm you've caused to Yunha and Julie will be compensated with death." With just a crack, the man ended his life in agony and wails. On the other side, the boy had only used the simplest skill talent. Yet it shocked the A-rank players present, because this was strength that a 6-year-old shouldn't possess. While Yunha seemed to only charge forward one step, he had actually penetrated through all the players' bodies. This shocking scene left even Anonymous, a top-tier player, too stunned to move. The massive power difference made him realize he absolutely couldn't engage Yunha in direct combat. Although he was indeed strong, when Anonymous executed this move, even the 12 thrones couldn't capture his figure. But when Anonymous confidently swung this sword, the next second, Yunha dodged this strike with an eerie movement technique. In his nonchalant gaze, he flew up with a kick, viciously kicking Anonymous's left arm. The brutal force sent him flying several meters away. It seems Anonymous isn't so impressive after all. The youth's arrogant words instantly ignited the fury in Anonymous's heart. He couldn't accept that his lifelong reputation would be ruined by an unknown youth. Then he launched a frenzied attack on Yunha with all his rage. But no matter what he did, Yunha could dodge all his attacks. Subsequently, he was kicked to the ground by Yunha. So once your skill fails, you have no combat ability at all. But don't worry, I won't kill you. With that, Yunha straddled Anonymous and raised his short sword. Immediately, the warehouse echoed with Anonymous's agonized screams. After ending the battle, Yunha contacted Shin Seong, deciding to let him serve as the hero who resolved this incident. Then he came to the warehouse where Anonymous was imprisoned. Under his horrified gaze, he removed the glasses that concealed his appearance. The next second, he quickly pressed the glasses back onto his head. Even he had lived 2 lifetimes. He had never seen someone so ugly, truly like a flounder possessed, beyond compare. Then a shout brought a smile to Yunha's face. His sister and Bruno all safely emerged from the shopping mall. After everything ended, Yunha invited Shin Seong to meet at a coffee shop. From their conversation, he learned that the future had indeed changed. Anonymous, the notorious criminal from his previous life, would become the first death row inmate since the establishment of the Fairy Palace. And previously, the intelligence Yunha had provided about the corrupt group, after the chairman's return to be forcibly terminated. The intelligence caused the succession battle that should have occurred. The gears of fate continued turning in this lifetime. Through Yunha's efforts, he had finally protected his beloved family members. Everything was changing for the better, but what he never expected was, the future would once again undergo unexpected changes. What was supposed to be a warm family gathering was disrupted when his sister expressed her desire to become a player, leaving Yunha dizzy and unable to hold his chopstick steady. He looked at his sister in disbelief, wondering why the future had changed. The reason for this was that every time danger approached, Yunha could only hide behind others, unable to do anything. She also wanted to become someone who could save others. Yunha, who was about to argue with his sister, was interrupted by their mother's words. Although I know being a player is very dangerous work, if this is Yunha's own wish, then I hope she can do what she wants to do. Hearing this, Yunha fell silent, and at this moment a thought was continuously growing in his mind. So the next day, Yunha brought his sister to a run-down warehouse, before he could explain anything. The next second, fierce winds arose, and in Yunha's incredulous gaze, she finally met her idol, Zodiac Shin Seo-young of the 12 Thrones. It turned out Yunha had reached an agreement with him, agreeing to let Shin Seo-young teach his sister to become a player and take her as his apprentice, while Shin Seo-young would provide the magical equipment Yunha needed. After exchanging pleasantries, Shin Seo-young was very satisfied with the vibrant young girl before him. Such immense magical power would certainly cause quite a stir among the 12 Thrones. Then Yunha solemnly asked his sister again, "Are you really okay with this?" After receiving a definitive reply, Yunha carefully handed the equipment to his sister, released the magic stone, and from now on the player examination officially begins. As the magic stone dropped, a brilliant light scattered in all directions. In Yunha's puzzled gaze, an extremely cute hamster appeared before her. The monster's adorable appearance instantly lowered his sister's guard. Even seeing the monster hop toward her, his sister took no action, so Yunha quickly rushed forward. In his sister's confused gaze, the monster suddenly attacked, opening its bloody maw to pounce at his sister. With a bang, Yunha kicked the monster dozens of meters away, turning to sternly scold his sister. "You cannot judge a monster's lethality by its appearance, nor can you hesitate when facing monsters, or you will surely die. So, do you truly have the conviction and determination to become a player?" The harsh words made his sister's heart waver, but everything that had happened in the past kept replaying in her mind. To protect his family, Yunha had rushed toward the Kraken without regard for his own safety. To protect herself, Julieta had moved the magic away from the enemy in front of her, just to give herself enough time to escape, and her originally wavering heart gradually became firm at this moment. Yunha didn't want to only receive protection. She also wanted to protect the people she loved. At this moment, Yunha's gaze no longer hesitated as she gripped the long sword tightly in her hand. "I can definitely defeat the monster." After exactly 15 attempts, Anya finally succeeded. But this was perhaps too cruel for a 12-year-old child, and Yunha immediately held his slightly out-of-control sister in his arms, continuously comforting her softly. "You've done very well." At this moment, the suppressed Yunha couldn't hold back any longer. She buried herself in Yunha's chest and cried loudly, releasing the oppression and pressure that shouldn't have belonged to her. Even Zodiac couldn't help but reflect that while this was a process every player had to go through, Yunha had actually made his sister kill monsters from the very beginning. This made Zodiac raise his danger assessment of Yunha by another level. Subsequently, Yunha's life returned to tranquility. Looking at the milk distributed by the school, Yunha couldn't help but think of his former teammate from his previous life, who also disliked drinking milk, causing him to remain short. However, just then, Eni suddenly stuffed something into Yunha's hand. Opening it, he discovered it was actually a popular magical product on the market, a tool that could turn plain milk into chocolate milk. This made the battle-hardened Yunha feel flustered. "Aren't you afraid the teacher will find out?" But on second thought, it seemed like he was the one who had led them astray. To atone for this, Yunha voluntarily took on the task of preparing milk for both of them. After school, Yunha immediately went to the upper grades. Although 3 days had passed since the examination, thinking of his sister's sad expression still made him worry about her psychological state. So every day after school, he would go find his sister first. Unexpectedly, upon reaching the 6th floor, he collided with an upper grade student. The blonde boy, seeing it was a lower grade student, immediately became arrogant, grabbing Yunha's sleeve to teach him a lesson. After observing for a while, Yunha recognized the arrogant man before him as Lee Konga, the player who had ruled the Northern District's gang in his previous life. Though his abilities weren't particularly outstanding, he was very skilled at exploiting human weaknesses, using this to manipulate his subordinates. It was no exaggeration to say, Lee Konga had been the strongest intelligence network in the Northern District. Since he attended this school, he should have lived in the Northern District since childhood. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the information broker here. Seeing that Yunha hadn't reacted for a while, Lee Konga, feeling his dignity was challenged, raised his fist to strike. But Yunha, thinking he might need his intelligence support in the future, immediately decided to leave him with an indelible impression. Then a phantom-like large hand suddenly appeared, just as the two were about to collide. A sharp shout interrupted this commotion. The owner of the voice not only made the arrogant Lee Konga blush with shame, but also left him at a loss. The owner of the voice was none other than Yunha's sister, Yunha. Seeing Lee Konga's flustered state, an extremely absurd thought emerged in Yunha's mind. He actually dared to have improper thoughts about his sister. The furious Yunha wanted to kill him immediately. No matter how Lee Konga tried to explain, Onya pushed him away. Coming to Yunha's side, I saw with my own eyes that you were about to bully my brother. As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd immediately gasped in surprise, because the two siblings bore no resemblance to each other whatsoever. Hearing this, Li Kangge became even more like a humble lapdog, following closely behind them and continuously apologizing. Watching the two walk away, he still maintained a smile more servile than any lapdogs. Yunha, I hope you have fun today. If anyone at school bullies your brother, you must tell me. Hearing this, Yunha glared at him with bared teeth. Next time I see you, you're dead. After leaving school, Yunha couldn't wait to ask, Sister, do you like him? Hearing this, Yunha stopped. Her footsteps and a charming smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She suddenly pulled Yunha tightly into her arms. The person I like most is you. Meanwhile, in a corner unknown to Yunha, because he had saved his parents, preventing grandmother from leaving the countryside as she had in his previous life. The future had changed once again, while passing through a small alley. The crying sounds from within caught grandmother's attention. The kind-hearted grandmother immediately went to investigate, discovering a blue-haired half-beast youth huddled in a trash can, shivering. Seeing this, grandmother quickly reached out to comfort him. The warm palm awakened the half-beast's consciousness that was about to fall asleep, but upon seeing it was a human, the ugly faces of humans from the past continuously cycled through his mind, frightening Bara into pushing away grandmother's hand, stumbling and falling to the ground, like a startled cat, continuously throwing garbage at grandmother. But grandmother, seeing the large and small wounds on Bara's body, still gently approached. If you don't mind, why don't you come to my house? After a month had passed, when Yunha returned to his hometown, the first thing he sensed was an unknown magical power within the house. So he had his sister move quietly. After confirming the other party's position through the door crack, he pounced without hesitation. The loud collision quickly drew everyone's attention. Yunha looked incredulously at the person before him, his former comrade in arms from his previous life, who had miraculously appeared in grandmother's house. After understanding the situation, Yunha sighed helplessly. Come to think of it, he was originally born here, but I didn't expect our connection to continue this way. When Bara saw Yunha staring at him continuously, he growled menacingly, Why do you keep looking at me? Then his words became even more aggressive. This fried chicken is mine. I have no intention of giving it to you. Get lost. Hearing this, grandmother quickly mediated. Bara, didn't we agree not to use such crude language anymore? But what Bara said next made Yunha furious on the spot. Seeing that the tension between the two wouldn't dissipate, grandmother quickly stepped in as mediator. But Bara not only refused to listen but also said, Old woman, how dare you lecture me? Hearing this, Yunha immediately flew into a rage. Although in his previous life, he had been no different from a mad dog, how dare he speak such nonsense to grandmother? Thinking of this, Yunha grabbed a drink. When dealing with disobedient mad dogs, the first thing to do is make them change their bad habits. Then he stood up with a dark expression. Grandmother, Bara and I are going out to play for a while. Before Bara could speak, Yunha dragged him up without allowing refusal, threatening quietly in his ear, I advise you not to talk nonsense and just come out with me obediently. The half-beast's instincts made Bara sense the crisis. Then he was reluctantly dragged outside by Yunha, subsequently thrown to the ground by Yunha, seeing his beloved fried chicken fall to the ground. Bara let out a mournful wail, turning to settle accounts with Yunha. But unexpectedly, Yunha snapped his fingers. A barrier suddenly rose from the ground. Although Yunha couldn't match Sister Ruying's abilities, as long as the people inside couldn't hear, it would suffice. After preparing everything, Yunha picked up the cola bottle and walked to Bara's front. Then let me teach you how to live like a human being. Seeing this, Bara also showed no weakness, raising his fist to counterattack. But when he looked clearly again, Yunha's figure had already appeared before him. The cola bottle struck his back like a hammer. He could clearly see the bottle's trajectory, but couldn't dodge it. This seemingly slow strike, along with attacks falling like raindrops, the already physically weak Bara immediately collapsed, the benefactor who gave you a place to sleep, food to eat, and treated your wounds. You actually dared to call her an old woman. Did your manners run away from home and never come back? But don't worry, even if you call for help, it's useless. People outside the barrier can't hear sounds from inside. Speaking of which, Yunha paused. If you know telepathy, you could use that to request help. Hearing this, Bara looked at me like I was insane. I'm only 10 years old, how could I possibly know telepathy? Hearing this, the flame in Yunha's heart that had just died down ignited again. So this kid was lying when he said he could use telepathy from childhood. In that case, let's have some more fun. As the cola bottle once again fell like raindrops, the barrier was immediately filled with agonized screams. Time came to the next day. After understanding Bara's basic situation, everyone unanimously decided to have him attend 3rd grade elementary school. Bara was about to refuse, but was silenced by one look from Yunha. Before my rebirth, Chen Bara had entered the academy a year earlier than me. I heard he was bullied quite a bit at that time. So Yunha placed his hand on Bara's shoulder and suggested to his parents, why don't we have brother Bara attend 2nd grade with me? Under Yunha's coercion and inducement, Bara had no choice but to go against his own wishes, saying he was willing to attend 2nd grade elementary school. Seeing this scene, grandmother was also very happy. I didn't expect these two little ones to become so close after just one night. Hearing this, Bara complained frantically in his heart. Are you all blind? Can't you see this kid is threatening me? So under Bara's terrified gaze, Yunha grabbed his sleeve. Then let's go have some fun together today too. Meanwhile, in the fairy palace of the 12 thrones, the future had changed once again. The woman effortlessly suppressed the S-rank player with just casual movements, simply because she was the fairy, one of the continent's strongest beings. But just recently, both parties had been negotiating for the 4,000 isolated imperial citizens. As a mutual condition, the fairy palace needed to send someone to subjugate the second-level monster Leviathan. Its terrifying strength was the strongest individual ability except for first-level monsters, and while causing disasters, it could also paralyze entire nations. An extremely evil monster. But such conditions were tantamount to sending imperial players to their deaths, so the fairy, citing unfamiliarity with the environment, changed the condition to providing magical potions to southern continent players free of charge. Hearing this, Valentine chuckled softly. Your country's magical potions are indeed shocking to me. Truly revolutionary products. Not only overturning the method of absorbing magical power through injection, but the same volume of magical potion only needs to be taken orally to obtain 3 times the magical power. But we have already decided to exchange Royal Sea magical alloy for those magical potions. Hearing this, the fairy's eyes narrowed. Are you certain you have enough magical alloy for the exchange? As soon as she finished speaking, the violent Myron kicked and broke the expensive solid wood table. The flying wood chips were suspended in midair by the fairy's raised hand, while Myron looked arrogantly at everyone. If you want us to return the imperial people, you must help us deal with Leviathan. Are all imperial players weaklings who can't leave the fairy's embrace? Even though Valentine told him to watch his words, Myron continued his relentless mockery. That's exactly why I hate imperial people. A bunch of yellow monkeys who only know how to talk about pickles and show off their eloquence. Hearing this, the fairy's hand wiping her mouth suddenly froze. The next second, heavy and solid pressure enveloped the entire fairy palace. The mountain-like oppressive force compressed both men's bones until they creaked. Until they collapsed on the ground, fine. To ensure the safety of all imperial citizens stranded in the Phantom Country, I will spare no effort to help you. Besides our country's strongest player known as the Divine Spear, Nangong Xingyun, I will also send 2 more members of the 12 Thrones. With this, you should be willing to safely return our citizens. With that, the fairy snapped her fingers. The heavy oppressive force left both S-rank strongmen nearly unable to breathe, and this was their first time witnessing just the tip of the iceberg of the strength that earned her the title of fairy. But Myron struggled to his feet from the ground in defiance, drawing his weapon to fight the fairy to the death, before Valentine could stop him. The next moment, bone-chilling ice crystals shot up from the ground. Instantly, a terrifying chill surrounded Myron. A phantom appeared behind him. If you dare move again, death will be your only path. The one who acted was none other than the Empire's strongest player, Divine Spear Nangong Xingyu. The fairy turned to look at Myron with indifference. It seems you're not completely brainless after all. The talks end here. Everyone please return. Myron could only watch the 3 leave through gritted teeth. After returning to the presidential office, Park Sang-jin solemnly warned the fairy, telling her that she had been too impulsive earlier and must learn to take care of her own body, reminding her that she was no longer a national actress but a fairy. Before his words of concern could finish, the fairy interrupted him, asking whether he was speaking from his position as a bodyguard or as actress Lim Gayul's agent. The fairy then stood up and walked toward the window, reflecting that the gains from this negotiation had exceeded expectations by far. This was all thanks to Alice Pharmaceuticals, and once this deal with the Shadow Kingdom was complete, they would need to go and properly thank him, though regardless of anything else, provoking the Shadow Kingdom's ambassador this time had been far too risky. Hearing this, the young woman looked toward Park Sang-jin and asked again whether this was his advice as her bodyguard. Seeing Park Sang-jin remain silent, the fairy chuckled softly. Divine Gun is next door, so what's there to worry about? If something really went wrong, it would only be those 2 ambassadors who would suffer. Meanwhile, Julieta was humming a tune as she walked excitedly down the street. The hospital had confirmed she was 6 weeks pregnant, so after leaving the hospital, she immediately pulled out her phone. She called her beloved Bruno and arranged to come home early tonight. She was preparing to give him a wonderful surprise, and listening to Bruno's gentle words. Julieta smiled foolishly, calling him a silly fool, looking forward to dinner and Bruno's excited reaction when he got the news. But then a familiar voice rang out from behind her. Terror instantly crept across Julieta's face as she couldn't believe that despite hiding so perfectly, she had still been tracked down by the family's hounds. Seeing herself surrounded front and back, Juliet was about to cry out for help, but Myron covered her mouth tightly with his hand. Dear princess, it's time to return to your cage. At the same time, the old man received a call from Juliet, but when he answered the phone, he heard Julieta's voice filled with sorrow. Bruno, let's break up. Upon hearing this, Bruno immediately stood up in agitation, but what echoed in his ears was the dial tone of a disconnected call. Having done all this, Julieta was heartbroken, understanding that her life was about to end. The moment she returned to the family, all that awaited her was becoming an accessory for the family's arranged marriage. But by sheer coincidence, Julieta's kidnapping was inadvertently witnessed by Yunha. Yunha's pupils suddenly contracted. Why would Myron, known as the Killing Hound, appear in this place? Then Yunha suddenly remembered. The talks between the Empire and foreign countries seemed to be happening right now, and the content of these talks concerned the subjugation war against the second-level supermonster Leviathan to safely repatriate the Empire's overseas citizens. The fairy government sent 3 members of the 12 seats to participate in the subjugation war, but it was precisely because of this battle that the Empire's combat power was severely damaged. Divine Gun Nengung Xingyun lost his left arm. Railgun Mu Shengming was affected by the after-effects of magical power rampage, leaving permanent disabilities in his body. Gardener Feng Yanzi died during the execution of the combat mission, but in reality Feng Yanzi had not died. He was imprisoned in the Shadow Kingdom, and the mastermind behind this incident was precisely Myron, who had once visited the Empire as an ambassador. Although later, due to pressure from various countries, the Shadow Kingdom publicly executed Myron. But why would this guy now be with Sister Juliet? So Yunha activated his skill Skystep, preparing to follow behind and investigate. But as soon as he stepped into the alley, he discovered that Myron's group had not left but was waiting for Yunha's arrival. And Myron, the killing hound, without saying a word, directly struck with a hand chop. The enormous difference in strength sent Yunha flying dozens of meters away. Seeing this, Myron was immediately startled. He had intended to kill the little brat with one strike, but unexpectedly it had been blocked. A sinister smile crept across his lips. His figure suddenly vanished from the spot, and when he reappeared, he was already approaching with his flying legs technique. The attack's accompanying air pressure made Ona's heart tremble violently. This guy really intended to kill him. So Ona no longer held back his strength, pouring all his magical power into his legs. He actively launched an attack toward Myron. But what he never expected was that Myron's speed was so fast that he not only easily dodged the attack, but he could also take advantage of Yunha's moment in the air to reach out and grab him. In the critical moment, Ona concentrated his magical power at his toes and fiercely kicked toward Myron, then used the force to leap into midair. Magical power formed waves in his palm. With a whoosh, it attacked Myron, while Yunha took the opportunity to create a safe distance. Seeing this, the impatient Myron decided to end the battle with one strike. The next moment his form flickered, appearing behind Yunha. Before Yunha could react, he fiercely grabbed Yunha's neck. Myron lifted him up, he said without emotion, "Then I'll finish you off directly, little boy."